Now, autism is an interesting topic because a lot of people talk about it like it's a disability that hampers the ability for a person to do the things that a quote-unquote normal person might be able to do. But the majority of people with autism, or who are autistic would be the better way of putting it, because, you know, it's not a disease as many people tend to think of it as, or at least a lot of unaware, uneducated people do. It's the way you are. Most people who are autistic don't think of it as a disability or like an ailment or a condition. It's like a category that you fall into. It's like not a personality type. It would be like if you claim that someone with like white hair had a problem because their hair is a rare color. You know what I mean? Most autistic people do not think of their supposed disability as a disability in the traditional sense. Not in that it doesn't hold them back in some ways. Autism absolutely holds some people back from doing what most neurotypical people can do with ease, though autism, in many cases, can also help others in areas where neurotypical people struggle. We talk a lot about how autistic people struggle with social skills, social cues, things like that. There are many autistic people who are really good at those things, above average good at those things, but we don't really talk about it because it's not an area of struggle. Autism is often talked about like it's an awful, horrible thing, like it's an ailment, and the fact is, if you ask people with autism, that's just not how they see it. And at the end of the day, if you're talking about autism like it's a problem, like it's an issue, an ailment, don't you think the opinion of the people who have this supposed ailment matter? The fact is, those who weaponize the concept of autism against the things they don't like, and yes, weaponized autism, believe it or not, is a term used by the United States military. I'm not joking. Google it. It is a real tactical method. Weaponized autism, or weaponizing the concept of autism, I should say, is something the right likes to do. And that they like to claim that it is a horrific, scary, tragic thing. How often do you see conservatives, or literally anybody, not right or left, talking about like having an autistic child like it's the most, like it's the same as having a child born with no arms or legs? How often have you heard it talked about that way? I've heard it talked about that way an absurd amount of times. The fact is, people range from resenting those who have autism for not recognizing it as disabling as they see it as from the outside, and others consider autism to be a made-up thing, to be overstated, or even just a symptom of an outside, usually inorganic factor. And so lately, the right has been using the concept of vaccines causing autism, a conspiracy theory that has been long debunked, to push the idea that this horrible, tragic, illness, we'll call it, is befalling children who get vaccinated. And they use this to claim liberal parents who vaccinate their children are at fault for, imposing the disability of autism upon their child. It's ridiculous, of course. What? Fever causes brain damage? Yes, I promise you, I know that a toddler not getting vaccinated and getting severely sick, and even if they survive, I'm very aware that like fever, just having a really high bad fever, not even a deadly one that requires you to be hospitalized, gives you brain damage. It literally cooks your brain. I'm very aware of that. When I had COVID, by the way, my fevers would get so bad, I had a little pulse oximeter thing I'd put on my finger, and it would just constantly tell me what my blood oxygen is and what my pulse is and all that. And I was watching that fucking thing for the second it dropped below 94%. The second it was to 94%. If it dropped to 94% or below, immediate 911 call. That was my plan. Thankfully, it never got that low. It read that low at some points, but then I adjusted it and it read back to like 99. And I was like, okay. But yeah, dude, sorry, I got a little caught up there. But yeah, sickness is no joke. Even if you survive it, it can mess you up real bad, which is why conservatives deciding to declare war on vaccines and medicine, it's a scary thing, especially when they decide to go to war against children's medicine. And that's what we're witnessing right now. But the dial has been turned up even crazier. I've been shocked. I thought that when I heard that this speech was announced a couple days ago by Trump, when he said that we found the cause of autism, which he claimed was out of control, by the way, and that we're going to be surprised when we find out what it is. I was like, we're not going to be. He's going to claim it's vaccines, right? Like, he's going to claim it's vaccines. I was wrong. He did claim it was caused by medicine, but not vaccines. He is now claiming that autism is caused by pregnant women taking acetaminophen, or, as most of you guys will know it, one of its many, many brand names that it goes by, Tylenol. Apparently, if a pregnant woman takes Tylenol, it causes their child to have autism. Now, you might be assuming that Trump completely pulled this out of his ass, like literally materialized this out of thin air, but that's obviously not the case. Believe it or not, they did not just pull this out of their asses. It's not true, but it's not completely made up. Allow me to explain. I will confirm, of course, it is a untrue statement, but the data they're pulling from looks weird. Like, they didn't just say, oh, well, no one's going to look at this data, so let's just say that it's what's causing it. They found data, which, yeah, some people in chat are already calling this out. They found data that does suggest a possible correlation between Tylenol usage in pregnant women and diagnoses of autism in children of said women. There are a number of factors, though, that kind of poke holes in this data. A, the fact that the gatherers of said data have outright said that there isn't enough information to make a conclusive claim. There's just, you can't really, like, use that much of a sample size and that kind of a inconclusive result to draw a conclusion that you just want to be true and call yourself an honest actor, but that is what they're doing. And then on top of that, there's of course the fact that, like, autism has been around for a very long time, measurably so. Tylenol has not been around as long as autism has. The idea that Tylenol as a concept, like, somehow went back in time and created autism, I don't know. It's very clear that autism is not caused by something made by man, it is a thing that happens. Though, I imagine many people are totally open to the idea that autism is a natural thing, but it can also be caused by outside factors, and I'm sure that's what Trump's leaning on, the general lack of education on the topic from many. And that's how we got here. The Trump administration now claiming that Tylenol causes this out-of-control autism. Good God, save us all.
Questionable warning and, frankly, directive from President Trump just moments ago, as well as his top health officials from the White House. The president saying, quote, Tylenol is not good, don't take it. For a little bit more of what we are hearing on these announcements.
I'm going to take some Tylenol immediately after I end stream today.
Let's listen.
Effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of well, let's see how we say that.
Oh my God, no shot, bro, no! Oh my God, please just fucking shoot me, bro. Just drag me out back. Just drag me out behind the shed. You can use my gun. Just fucking blow my brains out. I can't do this anymore, dude. How many times do I have to hear this orange, wrinkle, fat fuck, retard motherfucker who runs our country, who has more money than any of us could ever dream of, despite not being that rich for a millionaire. This fucking retard runs the country, and he can't stop for half a second and read acetaminophen by sounding it out. Do you guys want to know how I learned the word acetaminophen? When I was 13 years old, I bought the game DayZ. And in that game, when you get a cold, you need to take acetaminophen, the chemical name of Tylenol. It helps to reduce your symptoms. If you don't, you might die from the common cold in DayZ. So as a fucking 13-year-old, I sat there going, acetaminophen. And ever since, when I see that term, I immediately know what it is and how to pronounce it. The fact that our fucking president is having to stumble over that and be like, oh, okay, let's see how we pronounce this. And he's banning it. It is a substance he's banning and can't even pronounce the fucking name of. This kind of shit is the kind of stuff that the right would make a million TikToks and YouTube videos off of, just endlessly, boom, 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 hitting them with how ridiculous this is. It's tetracycline now in DayZ. No, Alexander Wooten. Acetaminophen is used for colds in DayZ. Tetracycline is used for bacterial infection in DayZ. So if you get a cut in DayZ and you use a dirty bandage to bandage yourself, you'll get a bacterial infection. You either need to use iodine, alcohol, or tetracycline pills on to clear the infection up, or it will kill you at like a ridiculous rate. Colds, on the other hand, are more annoying than deadly. If you don't do something about it and you keep subjecting yourself to shitty conditions like cold and wet, then you'll eventually die from it, unless you get better, which you still might. But usually you want to take acetaminophen in DayZ when you have a cold. Tetracycline won't do anything because it's an antibiotic.
That the use of let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Acetaminophen. Is that okay?
You did it.
Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol. During pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good.
Trump, next time you feel like utter shit, what are you going to take? Assuming Trump isn't literally taking speed. This motherfucker's gonna take Tylenol next time he feels down in the dumps. Like next time he's got like a sore throat or a cold and he feels like garbage and he's a little bit like headachy and feverish and he's got chills, he's totally gonna take a fucking Tylenol, dude.
The president there, just moments
Then again, he might just take the good, like, Europeans, like, Sudafed, yeah.
ago, as you heard him. Alongside him, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as well as CMS Administrator Dr. Mehmet Oz and others, all claiming as well there is a link that they say they have found between autism in children and the pain reliever acetaminophen, of course known as Tylenol by its brand name, when used during pregnancy. Now, let's reset here with the facts of what we do know and the science. Acetaminophen is currently considered the safest pain relief option for pregnant women. Administration officials now are advising women, however, not to use it early in pregnancy unless they have a high fever. The health secretary saying that at this point there are no...
Don't use the fever drug used to treat high fever unless you've got a high fever. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I don't usually go for taking any kind of medication when I'm sick. Like, even when I had COVID and felt like I was going to die. Like, when I had COVID, I was like 50-50 on whether or not I was gonna survive. Because it felt like death. Like, it felt like I was on my deathbed and it felt like death was coming for me. And then eventually I started to slowly feel better. But even through the very slow healing, like, multi-year long healing from having COVID, I was constantly worried I was going to backslide and go back to feeling like death again. I never took Tylenol. I never took Tylenol in all the time that I had COVID or long COVID. And I had a lot of recurring fever and whatnot. What I did to break my fevers is what I do to, like, what I've always done and what I still do to this day to break my fevers. When I, like, know that I have a fever, because I've got a thermometer, and I just, like, put it, yep, that's fever temp. I'm above normal temp. I take my clothes off, I turn on the shower, coldest water that can possibly come out, and I pretty much just do, like, a post-workout cold plunge. I do this, like, post-workout anyway, so I just do a cold plunge, and I, like, really freeze myself. Because, like, you can feel a fever break. Like, if they ban Tylenol and you get a fever, just take this advice from me. If your fever is bad, like you need to break your fever ASAP, draw the water in the shower, get it as cold as you can get it. If it's, like, freezing, like you live in the mountains and it's, like, straight out of the freezing pipes, that works, that's best. And just dunk yourself, particularly the top of your head, directly in the cold water. The sooner the top of your head, like all the heat is in your head and in your neck and in your chest. Once that part of your body has been like ran over with freezing cold water as you can get, like you're gonna be at first so miserable. Oh my god, it's so bad. But then all of a sudden, it goes from being unbearably cold to suddenly, snap of a finger, you're as cold as you should be. And the difference between like fever, when you have a fever and you're exposed to actual cold and how awful and unbearable it is, to when the fever's broken and you're feeling the actual cold, is night and day. Like neither is pleasant, but you go from absolute like barely bearable misery to, oh, okay, well this is uncomfortable, but clearly the fever broke. I felt it break. Like I feel better instantly now. And then you just like do a quick little once over with cold water and then turn off the faucet, dry yourself off. If you want to cool yourself down a little more, you can stand by a fan too, and dry off there and slowly warm up. But usually I'll try to warm up fast after that because I'll be freezing afterwards. And that when I'm sick, I don't even take Tylenol. That's what I do. I just go between like blasting myself with freezing cold water to break my fever, warming myself up with blankets and a space heater afterwards till I'm comfortably warm, and then once the fever comes back, it's straight back into that cold, freezing-ass shower to break my fever again. It's, I'll admit, I'm a master at breaking fevers.
Other options so that doctors should still use their...
Zan, that sounds unhealthy. It's not unhealthy at all. It's exactly what you're supposed to do. When your body temperature stays at fever temperatures for too long, you incur brain damage. So the second I realize I got a fever, that explains why I've got chills and I feel achy. Once I realize I'm at fever temps, get in that cold shower and break it. It's actually really good for you.
Best judgment, but then went on to warn that they believed as well that this was associated with potential liver toxicity, even claiming it could prolong viral illnesses in children. The administration, as part of this...
I would believe that Tylenol is dangerous to your kidneys before I would believe it's dangerous to your liver. Well, granted, your liver is filtering stuff out, but that's also what your kidneys do. Your kidneys do it primarily for what you intake through your body, and your liver does it for your blood. So, I mean, I don't know, like, I feel like if anything, wouldn't Tylenol hurt your kidneys? Wouldn't that make more sense? Causes liver failure, dude? I guess you're right. Like, if you take too much, right? Like, doesn't it shut down any organ in your body? Like, just full liver, like, not liver, organ shutdown if you take too much? I never heard about specifically liver failure with Tylenol, but okay. I know that, like, if people take too much, they'll just literally go into, like, they'll fall asleep and never wake up. If I remember, acetaminophen can affect both the liver and the kidneys. Yeah, like, when I think about taking too much of a medication, my first thought is like, oh, that's gonna fuck up your kidneys. Uh-oh. You're gonna have to go on dialysis for the rest of your life if you survive. That's my big fear. Is like taking too much of a medication and ruining my kidneys, bro. That's called dying, Zan. I know. I thought that just taking too much Tylenol kills you because all your organs shut down. I didn't know it was just your liver.
This announcement today is also saying that folinic acid, that's a supplement, also you may know it as leucovorin, is a way to decrease the symptoms of autism. Secretary Kennedy...
For those who don't know, supplements do not have to be approved by the FDA as a medicine. The standards they're approved by are much lower for like being medically safe, quote unquote, if it's a supplement as opposed to a medication. And so they are now demonizing actual medication that has saved lives and are now like pushing a supplement that I bet the entire Trump administration just bought a shitload of shares in every company that sells it in. And now they're going to start pushing it hard and probably like inflate that market and sell. I bet this is part of some kind of rug pull scheme, knowing the Trump administration.
has, of course, previously
decreases the symptoms of autism. There's so much to unpack there. It's insane.
promoted debunked theories which link vaccines to autism. And he was just bringing that up again moments ago as we were coming on the air here at the top of the hour. The secretary...
Look, it's Blue Meth Man.
And just pardon me as I look at my notes here, noting that they are now investigating, in his words, multiple areas of causation when it comes to vaccines. He claims that 40 to 60% of mothers who have children with autism believe that there is some link to a vaccination. The secretary also claiming that these women have been gaslit, he says, by the science, which has found that there is, in fact, not a connection between vaccines.
They've been gaslit by the science. I got a hate comment the other day. I got a hate comment the other day that simply read, LMAO science. And instead of a period, they added a little laughing, crying emoji at the end. Yeah.
Vaccines and autism, but he is saying now that this is something that he has directed his agencies to look into. Again, he has promoted these theories linking vaccines to autism for some time. You may recall back in April, he pledged that his agency would have answers on the causes of autism this month. He said we would know in September. This announcement already sparking a lot of pushback from medical experts. The chief of clinical practice for ACOG, that's the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, telling CNN in a statement, quote, there is no clear evidence that proves a direct relationship between the
we all know. We all know.
Prudent use of acetaminophen during pregnancy and fetal developmental issues. CNN medical correspondent Meg Terrell is joining me now. So Meg, I know you've been looking into this for...
Y'all better start, reading medical textbooks, low-key. I'm gonna recommend that we all just binge watch every episode of House ever while reading, every medical textbook you can find for free in a PDF form online. Just start reading that shit, because y'all are going to need to be able to perform field surgery on yourself. You're going to have to be able to cultivate your own penicillium fungi colonies in order to make your own penicillin. All right? We're entering an era where, getting sick is going to be as big of a problem as it is in, funnily enough, DayZ. It's going to be like, guys, does anyone have antibiotics? I'm going to die in 15 minutes if someone doesn't have them. I can't find any anywhere, guys. Please, I need tetracycline, please.
Some time listening as well to what we're hearing here from the administration, from the secretary. What is the science behind this announcement today?
Well, I'm not sure if we've actually heard them cite their specific studies, but it had been thought that they might cite an analysis that came out about a month ago that looked at 46 previously done studies, kind of analyzed the existing data. And the result of that was kind of mixed. And what they said was that it appeared from their analysis there was an association potentially between use of acetaminophen or Tylenol during pregnancy and neurodevelopmental disorders like autism or ADHD, but that they couldn't prove a causative relationship there. So you can say
and that's the key. There's a potential
Exactly.
association, but there is not a direct link or cause.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong about this. If I were to guess off the top of my head, I would guess the 3 most frequently used medications in America in order would be Tylenol, inhalant steroids for asthma, and heart medication. If I were to guess in that particular order, those are the most commonly used medications in America. I would probably guess Tylenol is number 1. I feel like every American has taken Tylenol at some point in their life, at least one tablet of it. And so it feels like what they're doing here is going after Tylenol and insulin are the most commonly used. I forgot about insulin. Tylenol inhalers and meds for heartburn and IBS, yes. Okay, well, I was close on some of those. Those are my guesses. Like I said, yeah, heart problems are so common, I assumed heart medication would be up there in the top 3. But, Tylenol's got to be, really high up on the list, right? Do you guys think this might not even be an attack on Tylenol more than it is a way of trying to lock down Tylenol into becoming a government-backed, highly valued commodity they can justify raising prices on and making highly exclusive just for the sake of increasing profits? Remember, the disgusting thing about capitalism is when companies realize that they cannot sell their product and make more money than if they sold a lot of their product. That's the fucked thing about capitalism. There are a lot of exploits, and one of the best exploits in capitalism to make way more money than you should and to artificially inflate the value of your business is to falsely manufacture scarcity. And that's basically could be what's going on if these pharmaceutical companies were like, you know what? Let's make Tylenol, the most commonly used drug in America, basically, 50 times harder to get, 500 times more expensive, and way more just generally, just the fact that it's so hard to get is going to mean that it's going to be always on people's minds. Everybody gets sick and feels like garbage from time to time. They're going to be wanting some Tylenol, and it's going to be hard to get. The idea of Tylenol being hard to get is going to be a meme. People are going to talk about it. You could argue that these pharmaceutical companies might not even be against this. Keep in mind, by the way, that the pharmaceutical industry behind opiates benefited massively from getting millions of Americans addicted to painkillers, and from there having those Americans fall off their painkiller prescriptions and instead start using prescription, either stolen prescription drugs or heroin. The pharmaceutical companies have highly benefited from their products being pushed on people, becoming normalized, and then yanked away from them. This has been a very profitable thing for these companies in the past.
And part of that, too, is because there's so many other things happening. It's not really a control in these studies, correct?
That's right. And so if you are taking Tylenol for a fever, for an infection, for pain, and then subsequently have a child who's diagnosed with autism, is it because you took Tylenol? Is it because of the infection, the fever, the pain, or is it because of something else entirely? We should note that autism is thought to be influenced by a lot of genetic factors, as well as potentially environmental factors. It's very complex. There was a lot that we heard from the president that I think had a lot of people kind of taken aback. One thing that I think folks will find potentially problematic is this idea that he suggested Tylenol should only be used during pregnancy for very, very high fevers if you can't tough it out. And it's dangerous to not treat a fever during pregnancy. And so Tylenol is a really important medication to be able to use to treat fever. And so the data don't necessarily support what we heard from the president.
So in terms of, and just remind us, right, the reason that it is so dangerous not to treat a fever during pregnancy is not just for the woman who is pregnant. It is also for the fetus and the potential damage that could be inflicted upon.
That's right. Yeah, there can be safety issues if you have a fever during pregnancy for the developing baby.
So as you talk.
Yeah, you could literally cook your baby inside of you. You know how they say, oh, you've got a bun in the oven? When you have a fever, the oven is up about 100 degrees hotter than it should be. You're burning the bread.
So in terms of, and you're right, we are hearing a lot. I mean, the president's saying, don't take it, saying there's no downside in not taking it. That is not accurate based on what we know from the science and from the medical community.
That's right. It can be dangerous.
The downside of not taking Tylenol is you have to continue dealing with the reason why you wanted to take Tylenol. There's absolutely a downside. Though, like I said, should they ban it or make it ridiculously expensive or hard to get, you could break your fever if that's the reason you want to take it with the method I explained. The good old cold plunge method. If you can cold plunge, if you've got a tub that you can fill with ice and water and plunge into when you have a fever, that's better than the shower method. If you can do a proper ice plunge when you have a fever, you'll break your fever basically instantly. It works. It works better than medication because it's literally you're lowering your body temperature.
Dangerous to allow a fever to go unchecked.
One thing he did say that we do know is true is there isn't an alternative. I mean, Tylenol is considered the safest option when someone is pregnant, if they are experiencing pain, if they are having a fever. Secretary Kennedy basically saying,
you know what they're going to go after next? They're going to go after aspirin next, I promise you. Next, they're going to go after baby aspirin. They literally make aspirin that's a lower dose for kids and babies and toddlers they're going to go after aspirin next, I bet. Like, we're literally just going to lose all medicine. Like, everything that makes life better for humanity is the enemy of the right. They're going to start with medicine. So we're all sick and miserable and dying all the time. We're going to have COVID. We're going to always be sick with no medications to use to reduce the symptoms. The more you're sick, the less you can work. The less you can work, the less money you make. The less money you make, the more you have to work. It's very much like the best case scenario for the wealthy ruling class.
We'll leave it up to the discretion of the doctor, but go with as low a dose as possible.
Well, and that's good medical advice generally. I mean, we've had babies. We know when you're thinking about taking a medication during pregnancy, you ask your doctor about everything. And it's always recommended, especially during pregnancy. But generally, for painkillers, you shouldn't take a higher dose than you need. Mm-hmm. The smallest dose for the shortest period of time is always the advice, in moderation, and especially during pregnancy, talking with a healthcare provider.
So a couple of the other things that we heard, and I'm hoping you can help me fact check this from the president, is he was saying that he believes there is no autism in the Amish community, talking about there's no Tylenol. He also...
Like, all of their talking points are the most culture war, brain dead, like, normie, brain rot internet takes ever. You know, like, no research, just, you know, that sounds about right to me. That kind of thing.
That he, in parts of the world that do not use Tylenol, he specifically said Cuba, he didn't believe acetaminophen was available there, that there was also no autism. Are either one of those statements factual? Are they accurate?
They, as far as we know, are not. And, you know, one of the things about the Amish thing, this has come up quite a number of times, that was about vaccines. That often is about vaccines. And this idea that the Amish community doesn't vaccinate. That, according to data, doesn't appear to be true. The Amish community appears to vaccinate. There aren't great data necessarily showing exactly how much, but they do apparently use vaccines. They do all.
The fact is, like, the Amish... Like, from what I understand, Amish communities are just not as hardcore as they used to be. Like, a lot of Amish communities have, like, at the edge of the property, there's, like, a little cabin where all of their electronics are. Because they'll have family and, like, kids and grandkids that come to visit. And, like, or sometimes they have jobs, or they have, like, something in their lives that requires them to interact with technology. And so they have, like, a designated building or, like, a little, like, a cabin on the edge of the property, like, towards the entrance, where everyone goes to, like, use a cell phone or use a computer, or, like, send an email or whatever they've got to do. If it's for work or if they're visiting, they drop their phone off there and they come back and they use it when they need to or feel like using it. You just hang out in that cabin, and that's the technology cabin. Like, I don't think most people, when they think Amish, think that they would have a building dedicated to, like, oh yeah, if you're Amish and you need to use technology, you go to that building. We've got it. It's just, you know, use it if you need it. I don't think most people would assume the Amish are that chill generally about it. Not all Amish are like that, but, like, for real, it's not like they're not literally a whole population of people out there who've sworn off all forms of technology whatsoever, living in an entirely, like, anarcho-primitivist style of life. Like, they're definitely, you know, they can build a log cabin or a barn in a day, using some really neat, like, carpentry tricks and stuff, and they're really good at working with their hands, and, you know, they know how to use, like, basic, like, like technology to achieve great things, don't get me wrong, but they're also not, like, out there living off the land solely. Not all that much. Not anymore.
Also have rates of autism. The rates that we've seen in studies tend to be lower than the rates for the overall population that we've seen, but there can be.
Do Amish people own guns? That's a really good example. From my understanding, yes. I do think a fair amount of Amish own guns. I think, like, it's, like, maybe older guns, or I don't even think, like, the age of the gun matters. Like, is there, like, a set date at which, like, what kind of tech the Amish aren't allowed to use? My understanding is it has to do with the electricity factor. It's about electricity, not being, like, mechanically advanced tech, you know? 1600s, I thought it's about electricity. So, like, even a modern firearm with, like, cartridge, like, if it, I guess if it has to be made with electricity either as well. Like, if you need electricity in a factory to make it, you know? Like, then I guess it wouldn't count. So, like, my Glock 19, an Amish person couldn't justify using, because that thing was made with, in, a mold inserted polymer, lower, and, like, stamped metal, or probably not stamped metal, probably, just cold, like, bent and welded metal, or not welded, cold forged metal, if I were to guess. Like, I don't know the exact process they use to make Glocks in the factory, but, like, I'm pretty sure it uses a lot of, like, non-hands-on, like, craftsmanship kind of stuff. And so I imagine for, like, the Amish, if it's a gun that was made with human hands and craftsmanship, they're allowed. But if it's, like, your modern-day, like, half-plastic modern rifle, probably not allowed to. Rifle or pistol.
Be genetic differences, there can be other environmental differences that don't explain that. And so many studies have shown.
No, it's about being able to support the repair of something by the community. If they can't make the parts to repair something, then it's heavily discouraged, but are allowed to buy spare parts. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that was the reason why. So it's literally like a radical example of, like, we refuse to own anything that we don't have the right to repair to.
That there are similar rates of autism among vaccinated and unvaccinated children generally. We didn't necessarily expect to hear vaccines coming up today.
No.
We were expecting to hear about acetaminophen or Tylenol. So the fact that that came into the conversation so early suggests that this conversation isn't done. You also heard the president talk not only about mercury, which has been an issue for 20 years, and you know, we could go into it, but aluminum is one of the next conversations here with vaccines.
A questionable
warning. I can't wait for when Republicans realize, like, either A, they stop talking about mercury being, like, deadly for humans, or eventually they find out how much mercury is in fish. Like, predatory fish. Like, the way it works, like, in nature, like, in any big body of water, for some fucking reason, don't ask me why, the ocean, in particular, has mercury metal just in it. It's like in the environment, in the sand, in the algae, in the grass and stuff. Like the seagrass seems to have a lot of it. Like most of it, of the total mercury, seems to exist in like the environment and like the seagrass and whatnot, right? When little fish come along to eat the algae and the seagrass, they accumulate mercury, but very small amounts, because the seagrass couldn't live if it had a lot of mercury in it, right? So it's not like there's a lot in there, but like these little fish eat up a little bit and they get a little mercury in them, and mercury doesn't, well, it takes a long time to go anywhere from the body, and it poisons everything on its way out. So like it stays in that thing for a while. It accumulates in the fish that's eating the mercury contaminated, we'll call it, algae. Then a larger predator fish eats that fish and probably eats 1,000 more over the course of like a year, right? That's a lot of mercury from each of those fish that they're accumulating now, right? Think like the energy web or the energy cycle within an environment where it's like grass and plants get 10% of the energy from the sun that's like put out in the form of radiation. Like what light radiation energy touches a plant, roughly 10% of it gets transferred into usable energy by a plant, right? On average. If a cow or a deer comes and eats it, 10% of the energy produced by that, like by eating that, stays and is stored in that animal on average. And then when a predator comes and eats it, it's even less, right? So you're slash 10%, like 10% of 10% of 10% of 10% of the energy that originally came from that tertiary source of energy makes it to that final predator. It's the reverse in the case of mercury, where mercury accumulates the higher up the food chain you go, unlike energy, which decreases in fractions as you go up the food chain. With mercury, it gets higher. And so your very predatory animals like shark and tuna, and if you've ever seen a tuna before, they're fucking enormous and they're mean, and they eat a lot of smaller fish. And so tuna and other on par, like big ass predator fish that eat a lot of other fish, like swordfish and whatnot, eat so many predator fish that eat prey fish that then eat things that have mercury in the environment, that they are like the nexus of all the environment's mercury. So if you eat too much tuna and other predatory fish, like high up the food chain kind of predatory fish, like a lot of it, you're the next step on that food chain, baby. You are eating so much mercury every time you have tuna, it's not even a joke, bro. You're eating so much mercury. So yeah, if the right actually gives a fuck about people poisoning themselves with heavy metals, such as mercury, which it takes a lot of to actually hurt you, mind you, that's why you can eat tuna and not die, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to go after tuna next. Yeah, sardines are apparently a good alternative to tuna that are lower on mercury. Yes, yes. I actually had a friend the other day who loves seafood tell me that their doctor told them they have to, like, cut back on how much fish they're eating because their mercury measured as high. And I was like, well, what kind of fish do you mostly eat? And they were like, well, my favorite is tuna. And I was like, well, there's your problem right there. Like, choose eat some mullet for a little while and you'll be back to normal in no time and you can still eat fish. And they were like, what? I was like, do you know how mercury gets in? And I had to explain that whole thing to them. And it was like, yeah, eat like a prey fish. Eat like a really low on the totem pole prey fish, like a mullet. Or salmon. Salmon are pretty low on mercury. They don't eat any other fish from what I understand. At least I don't think they do. Actually, they might. They have teeth. Salmon have teeth. I live in Washington. I've seen some salmon up close enough that I can see they have teeth. Question mark, question. They have teeth! They do! I've seen a Chinook salmon up close. That fucker had teeth. Maybe I'm pretty sure that tuna had fit. Hold on, not tuna, salmon. Salmon, teeth. I'm pretty sure they have teeth. Oh yeah, they do. Okay, yeah. So I totally saw teeth on that damn salmon, dude. Granted, this is a like red salmon or whatever they're called, like the kind of salmon that you eat, like when you get a thing of it. But yeah, I think salmon probably eat other fish. I think they probably eat a lot of other fish, because that is a fucking gnarly-ass maw right there. Why? How did we get to this topic? What the fuck? Okay, if you enjoyed this video, and somehow made it all the way into the fish stun lock, then please consider leaving a like and a comment down below. And if you made it this far, comment salmon, in order to let the folks, me, know that you watched this far into the video. It really does help when you like and comment on my stuff, and it forces YouTube to push my stuff in the algorithm, so I appreciate it immensely. You know, subscribe if you want to see more from me. Follow my social medias linked down below. Join my fan Discord if you haven't already through the link down below. And if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall Studio, please consider donating, subscribing, gifting a sub on my website, or supporting me through YouTube, through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me, thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.